Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Alisha here at Cosmic Gateway. I've had quite a busy week, lots of insights, very interesting sessions, quantum sessions, and just a lot of conversations and awarenesses of all the things that are happening right now as we're sort of halfway point through the eclipse corridor. And it certainly has been one of quite a high level of intensity. I know that a lot of people are struggling for various reasons, many levels. So I thought I would just come on and do an audio recording just to share some of my own observations of what is happening with the energetics, what's happening within the body, and what's happening on a greater scale. Hopefully I can encompass it all. It's just been pieces, thoughts, different dialogues that have kind of been running through my head most of the day. And where to start? So back in August, I talked about the tracking devices or the different types of technology that has been utilized mainly in the brain as like monitoring systems, which has kind of prevented or inhibited people from kind of reaching their or sustaining their full potential. One of the things that came through was that there would be an expiry date to a lot of this implants or energetic technology that has been placed there, and that correlated with this eclipse corridor. So I was intrigued to see or witness what would happen around that time. And interestingly enough, the date that I was given was the 8th of September. And what I witnessed in and around me was there was a huge high level exacerbation of the mental body, or maybe not so much the mental body as we understand it in the energetics of our energy field system, but high level of astral debris, lots of racing thoughts, intrusive thoughts, just like static in the field. And the energy itself, I noticed, was being very harsh, very judgmental, very critical, very fearful, fear-based. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that quite often a large portion of our thoughts that we have aren't our own. If we're intuitive or empathic, our antennas can often pick up from the field around us, from other people. But there's also wave patterns that happen in the air that sort of pump thought waves and almost like injections of fear that we can pick up. And often if we're not conscious of it, we can internalize that thought pattern and it almost sticks to us, just part of the density of what's being kind of churned out, if you will, that then can loop in our head and then we kind of believe it, and then that can wreak havoc through our emotions, our reactions, even through ideas of what we might have about our physical system if it's going through a release. So up to that date, and even on that date, I felt like things reached a real peak and crescendo. Since then, there has been a slowing down of that, like mental mind intensity. But I would have to say it was probably one of the most intensive passageways I've noticed for quite some time. And how I've been witnessing it impacting people is thoughts about themselves, really exacerbating to like out extreme proportions or out of um, out of proportion of what could be trigger points or weak spots. And as I go along, I might try and interweave some more specifics. Today felt like a turning point. It felt like the tension that has been brewing for the best part of 2 to 3 weeks has somewhat subsided, dialed down a little bit. And you may have found that today or over this weekend, there's a deep need for rest and recuperation and just allowing your body to catch up with the excessive amount of release or processing that has been happening. What I have heard as one of the most common phrases over the past week or so is this inability to relax, like feeling very edgy, very anxious, restless, and just not being able to hit that calm spot or not being able to sustain it for long periods of time. So what I want to bring, if you've been going through this, what I want to bring to your attention, if you're not familiar with it, you may already be putting that in practice. But I think one thing that is probably really helpful as we move through this passageway is connecting with the vagus nerve reset. So there's various ways that you can do that. And if you're keen to learn more about it, I would encourage you to look that up online and find different ways that you can. One of the most effective ways I've found is when you're lying flat on your back, arms behind your head, and then using both eyes to look to the right or to the 3 o'clock position and hold it there until you start to release through yawning or sighing, but it's really through the mouth that's kind of releasing or unlocking. And I think there's another way you can do that with rapid eye movement, so moving both eyes from extreme right to extreme left until you start to feel the release coming through, once again, sighing, yawning, toning perhaps even. Another beautiful, gentle way is just to do gentle massage on the feet or deep belly breaths. So breathing in deeply for about 4 or 5 seconds, holding that, and just repeating that until you start to yawn. And you literally can start to feel the tension build up, start to release. And it's almost like a decompress. And then it sends your body into that relaxed state. So the nervous tension that's been pumping through our systems just gets, it allows the body to rest and recuperate so that we can go back into that state of realignment of what I perceive is happening or occurring in the energetic template of the individual. And it's so important to understand sort of what's beyond this point, because sometimes we can get really caught up in the intensity of it all and lose sight of the bigger picture or the reason why we're going through such level of intensity. So a couple of words have come to mind. Compression. It feels like there's a compression of soul integration, merging energetically and physically. So we have to create a lot of space for that. We have to allow our bodies to release what's not in alignment with that, in that next level soul integration that I believe is happening throughout September, and it will continue to happen and unfold probably until November is my estimate for some people. But I think it's also important to remember that I think everyone's at their own pace, and you've just got to go at a pace that's perfect for you. So the unraveling or unwinding is a lot to do with old and outdated or inorganic timelines that are connected and held within the body. The body stores and remembers. And this is intrinsically connected to the nervous system. I also want to say I feel like it's connected to our circulatory system, our blood, our lymphatic system, and the ability that our body has to process and detoxify both physically and energetically, emotionally as well, and mentally. But it feels like all of them are working as hard as they possibly can. That's why doing things like the vagus nerve reset would be really helpful, just to almost decompress or unravel as we go through the physical release stages and the emotional, mental. We're releasing a lot of energetic buildup that has been intertwined with perhaps traumatic imprints from previous timelines, parallel lives. It's very multidimensional in what is occurring. So be gentle with yourself. Definitely some of the places that are most heightened would be the stomach, the head, the heart, and the nervous system specifically. So making sure that we're supporting them as best we can physically. So doing detoxes, salt baths, massages, lymphatic, exercises, drainage, changing up our diet, making sure we're rested, hydrated. All those sorts of things can really help overall. What I've noticed now is there's this process of elimination that's happening of like whatever the next version that is preparing to rebirth within us in this energetic template is literally rejecting. So you might find now big changes in what you eat, your behaviors, your what you're consuming, essentially. Whatever you're consuming or absorbing in your environment, in your mind, there's like a heightened level of sensitivity. And I know that that's always a preparation for a really big up-leveling in frequency and vibration and soul integration. So roll with it. The best thing you can do is just take a few moments just to tune in with yourself each day, just asking what's the best thing to support. And it might not be the hard and heavy exercise routine. It may be just much more simple, gentle relaxation methods to allow the body to align and catch up. So now that I've got all that out the way, that's more the gentler aspects. So huge body stuff and what I've noticed in the energetics is there's so much energetics being released from the system, unprecedented amounts of technology and implants. And when I say that, just to clarify for those who aren't perhaps as familiar with those terms, when I'm talking about implants and technology, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, I'm talking about energetics, not physical, although it could come in both. And often when we have strange anomalies happening within our body starts to malfunction, we have twinges or pains or pressures, there's always an energetic imprint that is creating that blockage. So we can do so much on a physical level, but if we're not getting to the root cause of what's happening within the energetic system, we're not giving ourselves the full capacity to heal and transform. So I have been witnessing a huge amount of very specific devices, but one that's been really curious to me has been the spiky balls, or the probably may have heard of me talk about them in the past, maybe several years ago. These kind of spiky metallic balls that come in. I see them as an inorganic expression of what then occurs on a physical level as some sort of virus or bacteria, some sort of form of flu type sickness. And that has always shown up in the body for me, either before or during someone gets sick, and it doesn't feel necessarily organic to me. But the physical implications of what that does is it attacks our weakest points and exacerbates that, and it kind of puts us into a bit of a health crisis. And I guess the flip side, or the positive outcome of that, is that we are able to up level in some capacity. We can transform, and we can incorporate higher consciousness into our body as we go through that process. Something that has occurred this week that has really piqued my interest, which has came through a quantum session, and is something that I've been tracking and monitoring for the best part of this year, and probably even beyond, is connected to parallel realities, parallel lives, where our consciousness may have been targeted or entrapped, that is keeping us from accessing our highest potential or timeline. And I believe that this occurs on a very large scale, of those who operate at a frequency outside of this reality that can derail. And one of the things that came up this week was around the pods and people being released from pods. Now, when I talk about these pods, I want to make it super clear. There are the pods that people may experience or have had experiences on in light ships or healings, being in deep healing spaces, when they have conscious contact with benevolent beings, cosmic beings. Generally, this takes place on ships, and it has a huge deal of healing properties. It's very multifaceted, but it's a place where you can come back and assimilate. It's a place where fractals of your consciousness can go into parallel realities and then come back and be restored and it's directly connected to our body consciousness here in this present time and space. And that's what I would call the benevolent aspects of the pods. So the pods that piqued my attention this week is probably the inverted or the reverse of that. And that's where I believe that there are underground facilities, on-world and off-world, that have almost like these pods of incubation, very matrix-like, that has a fractal aspect of us that could be in a parallel reality. It's probably the best way I can explain it. That is literally utilizing our light and energy or consciousness that fuels the false illusion of the matrix. And slowly that has been disintegrating. But I feel like this is probably one of the crux of, if you want to look at why there potentially has been delays throughout the ascension process, is that not everyone has access to their full human potential, their full light and expression to do what it is and what they're meant to do here. Because once that happens, and all the souls who have come here for a higher purpose can access and remember who they are, and be empowered, have that frequency operating within them and fully restored within them, that gives them that burst of light, inspiration, and forward momentum. That's a complete game changer when you think about that happening on a mass scale. And I do believe that one of the main reasons that many people can't access that fully and are completely in a state of energetic overwhelm or disease or sickness or illness or things like chronic fatigue or weird pains, anomalies that can't be how do I say this? They don't have any rhyme or reason from a medical standpoint. Weird health anomalies that don't seem to have any root cause that can be detected. I truly believe that there's many reasons, but this could be one of the exacerbating reasons. Another one is implants and technology. Once they're released, often the body can go back to its natural state of cohesion, which is a beautiful thing. So what I witnessed was an incredible soul who's given me permission to share, describe being released from one of these pods and describing that many more are currently being released, and there'll be many more to come, and that will up level the quotation of light. This is my interpretation. As that happens, they have more access to their soul consciousness, and this coincides with my overall sense and feeling that there's a big group of quite powerful souls that are coming into that remembrance this year. If you want to look at it as another wave of a big awakening, but this may be a reawakening or a re-remembering or coming back into that. And it's a timing thing, but this feels incredibly powerful. And I feel quite inspired to do more work around this to help support people to regain that access and come into their remembrance, their highest remembrance, to do what it is. So that is facilitated through my quantum merging process. It's very, it's a very deep process. It's very in depth. the sessions go for quite a length of time. And with that, there's instructions of a follow-on kind of remedy or process that is designed to continue on to keep the momentum going once the session has been completed. The process still continues. So I offer ongoing sort of contact point of support if and as it's required for a couple of weeks as that process integrates. But it's people really going through me just being the facilitator of that process to unravel, and I'll talk about that in a sec, unravel what is not them to become more of themselves and what they're here to do. So if you're interested in that type of session or any other, the details will be in the description box below. But the final thing that I want to talk about, and I went to write a post about this a few days ago, and I knew I couldn't articulate it in written word as easily as I probably can just talking it out. But it comes back to that internal process that I feel like what is happening. And I'll try and give some examples that might help you understand if this aligns with you of something that you might be going through. Everyone talks about the split happening, the two worlds split, the split in consciousness, all those different facets. And it's very much from the perspective of a little bit more external, but it's happening, or we're witnessing it through our lens of reality. What I have been noticing is it feels like the split is happening inside the body, and each day we're being given opportunities of choices. And this can feel very polarizing, very extreme. I feel like this will start to subside and balance out once we sort of get over the other side of the eclipse and hit the September equinox. So this process of unraveling of the timelines, it could be old physical symptoms or injuries or illnesses. It feels like we're and on an emotional level, huge amounts of like unprocessed or unable to process grief or sadness or anger or rage that's presenting through the body. And so it's giving us a really great opportunity to be very present with like dotting the I's and crossing the T's in our own evolutionary process. But literally the split that I feel like is happening within me is I feel like there is a literal death of the old version of myself that I can feel in real time dying. And then there's a new version of myself being reborn. And I can feel it in the subtleties through thought processes, emotions, and where I put my focus and attention, energy on. So in one moment, if I'm in that energy of the old part of me that feels like it's literally dying at times, it feels very dense, very challenging, very hard, very unmotivating, lack of energy, vitality. The body literally has a lot of pressure in it. And it's connected to what I was talking about, I think a lot last year, about the desolate timeline, the 3D timeline that feels like it's literally dying or decaying. And it's like the aspect of us that has had any tie to that feels like it's dying off with us, and we're kind of re-emerging into that new or true version of self, I should say. And so that's where I feel like consciously we get to choose in every moment where we put our focus on, because the new version that's emerging is absolutely magnificent. It's majestic. It has vibrancy. It has life force. It has inspiration, passion. It has real purpose to it. And with that, it's like we get to choose to step in and follow through. And I think the action step as we kind of move out through the eclipse and into the second half of September, I think it's really being able to put into practice every opportunity that we get to take the action steps towards all the things that we know intuitively is in alignment with our highest path. And these are things that you could have put off for years, like action steps to, create that course or write that book or create that artwork. And it could be down to the most minute things of like proactively, engaging with your local community or grounding or writing a song, singing, whatever it may be. It's like really investing in those moments of joy of what it is that is in your truest expression that wants to come through you in that vibration. I don't think we're fully there yet, but it's a good laying down the foundation phase for it right now. So right now it feels like a simultaneous of releasing, letting go, and like it's ebbing and flowing. And that's why I talk about the split happening within, because it's like in any moment I can feel the subtle vibrations of which experience of version of myself I'm experiencing, and just honoring that, not trying to force or push, just watching it ebb and flow till it sort of clicks into that next gear. I think that's about it. I mean, I could probably talk for, the next couple of hours about all the things, but I think I've encapsulated the most important points that I wanted to share. And of course, putting it out to you guys, I would love to hear what you've been experiencing, what you're going through. Is it something similar? Probably on a final note, one thing that I've observed that I've supported a lot of people through over the last few weeks is that whole relationship theme coming up again, of relationships falling away, or being disjointed, whether that's intimate connections, friendships, family. It feels like as we go through this internal splitting apart to the renewal, or that compression upgrade, I think it's one and the same. It's just two different ways of expressing that. As that is occurring, it's such a big process that we're going through within ourselves that it does change the fabric of reality around us in terms of our interconnected personal relationships. So there's been quite a strain on relationships, miscommunication, breakdowns, people separating or going different ways, whether it's temporary or permanent. And what I always come back to and like to share is often, or not often, the way I see it from an energetic standpoint is it's a misalignment energetically. And whether it's for a short time or a long time or forever, it's literally an imbalance of vibration. So often that just happens as one person's going into one path, or they're going through the next up level of themselves, and the people around them aren't quite there yet, or they're up leveling but in like a slightly different direction. And if we're not aware of the energetics of that, often from a very human standpoint, blow-ups can occur, miscommunication. And so this is bringing up lots of different types of wounding on, interpersonal levels as well. I've noticed a lot of people coming to me and sharing and expressing to me just things around relationship dynamics that has, has the potential for lots of anxiety or heart palpitations, stress. So really going back to the vagus nerve reset techniques and just calming, tuning in, and just understanding and observing what's taking place. And that gives you insight to how best to navigate it optimally. So I hope that helps. I'm certainly thinking of you all as we navigate this terrain. Oh, the last thing I will share is throughout this week I woke up, so I noticed that wherever I'm going at nighttime, for the most part, there's a real healing effect. Even if I take a short nap, there's a lot of healing energy available when we rest and sleep and get proper rest and sleep. And I woke up one morning and I felt all the release happen overnight throughout my body. And I felt this sense of ease and peace and comfort that I hadn't felt for days leading up. But as I woke up thinking that it was the 10th of October, the 10/10. So I think that that's significant in a part of what we're going through, that it may come into full effect around that time or in and around that time. It's very hard to put timelines on things, but that felt very significant. And I know in previous years, hitting sort of that early October or second week of October, there tends to be quite a influx of light coming in that is very supportive to us. So big hugs to everyone, sending much love to you all. If you do need additional support, the details will be in the description box below. And if not, I will connect with you soon. Much love. Bye-bye.